Sterling banknotes are the banknotes in circulation in the United Kingdom and its related territories, denominated in pounds sterling. Symbol: pound. ISO 4217 currency code GBP. Great Britain pound. Sterling banknotes are official currency in the United Kingdom, Jersey, Guernsey, the Isle of Man, South Georgia and the South Sandwich Islands, and Tristan da Cunha in St Helena, Ascension and Tristan da Cunha. £1 is equivalent to 100 pence. 3 British overseas territories also have currencies called pounds which are at par with the pound sterling. In most countries of the world, the issue of banknotes is handled exclusively by a single central bank or government. But in the United Kingdom, 7 retail banks have the right to print their own banknotes in addition to the Bank of England. Sterling banknote issue is thus not automatically tied in with one national identity of the activity of the state. The arrangements in the UK are unusual, but comparable systems are used in Hong Kong and Macao, where 3 and 2 banks respectively issue their own banknotes in addition to their respective governments. The Bank of England does act as a central bank in that it has a monopoly on issuing banknotes in England and Wales, and regulates the issues of banks in Scotland and Northern Ireland. Pounds issued by Crown dependencies and other areas are regulated only by local governments and not the Bank of England. History. Until the middle of the 19th century, privately owned banks in Great Britain and Ireland were free to issue their own banknotes. Paper currency issued by a wide range of provincial and town banking companies in England, Wales, Scotland and Ireland circulated freely as a means of payment. As gold shortages affected the supply of money, note-issuing powers of the banks were gradually restricted by various Acts of Parliament, until the Bank Charter Act 1844 gave exclusive note-issuing powers to the Central Bank of England. Under the Act, no new banks could start issuing notes, and note-issuing banks gradually vanished through mergers and closures. The last private English banknotes were issued in 1921 by Fox, Fowler and Company, a Somerset bank. However, some of the monopoly provisions of the Bank Charter Act only applied to England and Wales. The Banknotes Scotland Act was passed the following year, and to this day, 3 retail banks retain the right to issue their own sterling banknotes in Scotland, and 4 in Northern Ireland. Notes issued in excess of the value of notes outstanding in 1844, 1845 in Scotland, must be backed up by an equivalent value of Bank of England notes. Following the partition of Ireland, the Irish Free State created an Irish pound in 1928. The new currency was pegged to sterling until 1979. The issue of banknotes for the Irish pound fell under the authority of the Currency Commission of the Republic of Ireland, which set about replacing the private banknotes with a single consolidated banknote issue in 1928. In 1928, a Westminster Act of Parliament reduced the fiduciary limit for Irish banknotes circulating in Northern Ireland to take account of the reduced size of the territory concerned. Elizabeth II was not the first British monarch to have her face on UK banknotes. George II, George III and George IV appeared on early Royal Bank of Scotland notes, and George V appeared on 10 shilling and £1 notes issued by the British Treasury between 1914 and 1928. However, prior to the issue of its Series C banknotes in 1960, Bank of England banknotes generally did not depict the monarch. Today, notes issued by Scottish and Northern Irish banks do not depict the monarch. The monarch is depicted on banknotes issued by the Crown dependencies and on some of those issued by overseas territories. Key dates. The following events and Acts of Parliament affected the course of banknote history in Great Britain and Ireland. everyday use and acceptance. The wide variety of sterling notes in circulation means that acceptance of different pound sterling banknotes varies. Their acceptance may depend on the experience and understanding of individual retailers. And it is important to understand the idea of legal tender, which is often misunderstood. See section below. The assumption that all sterling notes are legitimate and of equal value, and are accepted by merchants anywhere, has become a tourism headache in some parts of the UK. In summary, the various banknotes are used as follows. Bank of England banknotes. Most sterling notes are issued by the Bank of England. These are legal tender in England and Wales, and are always accepted by traders throughout the UK. Bank of England notes are generally accepted in the overseas territories which are at parity with sterling. In Gibraltar, there are examples of pairs of automatic cash dispensers placed together, one stocked with bone notes, the other with local ones. Scottish banknotes. These are the recognised currency in Scotland. Although they are not legal tender, they are always accepted by traders in Scotland, and are usually accepted in other parts of the United Kingdom. However, some outside Scotland are unfamiliar with their notes and they are sometimes refused. Institutions such as clearing banks, building societies and the post office will readily accept Scottish banknotes. Branches of the Scottish note-issuing banks situated in England dispense Bank of England notes and are not permitted to dispense their own notes from those branches. Modern Scottish banknotes are denominated in pounds sterling, and have exactly the same value as Bank of England notes. They should not be confused with the former pound Scots, a separate currency which was abolished in 1707. Northern Irish banknotes. Banknotes issued by Northern Irish banks have the same legal status as Scottish banknotes in that they are promissory notes issued in pounds sterling and may be used for cash transactions anywhere in the United Kingdom. However, they are rarely seen outside Northern Ireland. In England and Wales, although they might be accepted by any shop, they are often not accepted without some explanation. Like Scottish notes, clearing banks and building societies will accept them. Northern Irish sterling banknotes should not be confused with the Irish pound, or punt, the former currency of the Republic of Ireland, which was replaced by the euro in 2002. Banknotes of the Crown dependencies. The bailiwicks of Jersey and Guernsey, and the Isle of Man, are possessions of the Crown but are outside the UK. They are in currency union with the United Kingdom and issue sterling banknotes in local designs. Jersey and Guernsey pounds are freely interchangeable within the Channel Islands. In the United Kingdom, they are intermittently accepted by merchants. However, they are accepted by banks and post offices, and the holder can exchange these notes for other sterling banknotes. British Overseas Territories. There are 14 British Overseas Territories, many of which issue their own currencies which are distinct under ISO 4217. Gibraltar, the Falkland Islands, and St Helena, Ascension and Tristan da Cunha have their own pounds which are at par with sterling. These notes cannot be used in the UK or outside the territories of origin. Falkland Island pounds are also valid in South Georgia and the South Sandwich Islands and the British Antarctic Territory. St Helena pounds, however, cannot be used in the Tristan da Cunha constituent territory, where the UK pound sterling is the only official currency. The question of legal tender. The concept of legal tender is a narrow technical concept that refers to the settlement of debt, and it has little practical meaning for many everyday transactions such as buying goods in shops. But it does apply, for example, to the settlement of a restaurant bill, where the food has been eaten prior to demand for payment and so a debt exists. Essentially, Any two parties can agree to any item of value as a medium for exchange when making a purchase. In that sense, all money is ultimately an extended form of barter. If a debt exists that is legally enforceable, and the debtor party offers to pay with some item that is not legal tender, the creditor may refuse such payment and declare that the debtor is in default of payment. If the debtor offers payment in legal tender, the creditor is required to accept it, or else the creditor is in breach of contract. Thus, if in England Party A owes Party B £1,000 and offers to pay in Northern Irish banknotes, Party B may refuse and sue Party A for non-payment. If Party A provides Bank of England notes, Party B must acknowledge the debt is legally paid even if Party B would prefer some other form of payment. Banknotes do not have to be classed as legal tender to be acceptable for trade. Millions of retail transactions are carried out each day in the UK using debit cards and credit cards, none of which is a payment using legal tender. Equally, traders may offer to accept payment in foreign currency, such as euro, yen or US dollars. Acceptability as a means of payment is essentially a matter for agreement between the parties involved. Millions of pounds worth of sterling banknotes in circulation are not legal tender, but that does not mean that they are illegal or of lesser value. Their status is of legal currency. That is to say that their issue is approved by the Parliament of the UK, and they are backed up by Bank of England securities. Bank of England notes are the only banknotes that are legal tender in England and Wales. Scottish and Northern Irish banknotes are not legal tender anywhere, and Jersey, Guernsey and Manx banknotes are only legal tender in the respective jurisdictions. Although these banknotes are not legal tender in the UK, this does not mean that they are illegal under English law, and creditors and traders may accept them if they so choose. Traders may, on the other hand, choose not to accept banknotes as payment, as contract law across the United Kingdom allows parties not to engage in a transaction at the point of payment if they choose not to. In Scotland and Northern Ireland, no banknotes, not even those issued in those countries, are legal tender. They have a similar legal standing to cheques or debit cards, in that their acceptability as a means of payment is essentially a matter for agreement between the parties involved. Although Scots law requires any reasonable offer for settlement of a debt to be accepted, until 1988, the Bank of England issued £1 notes, and these notes did have legal tender status in Scotland and Northern Ireland while they existed. The Currency and Banknotes Act 1954 defined Bank of England notes of less than £5 in value as legal tender in Scotland. Since the English £1 note was removed from circulation in 1988, this leaves a legal curiosity in Scots law whereby there is no paper legal tender in Scotland. The UK Treasury has proposed extending legal tender status to Scottish banknotes. The proposal has been opposed by Scottish nationalists who claim it would reduce the independence of the Scottish banking sector. Most of the notes issued by the note-issuing banks in Scotland and Northern Ireland have to be backed by Bank of England notes held by the issuing bank. The combined size of these banknote issues is well over £1 billion. To make it possible for the note-issuing banks to hold equivalent values in Bank of England notes, the Bank of England issues special notes with denominations of £1 million, giants, and £100 million, titans, for internal use by the other banks. Banknotes are no longer redeemable in gold, and the Bank of England will only redeem sterling banknotes for more sterling banknotes or coins. The contemporary sterling is a fiat currency which is backed only by securities, in essence IOUs from the Treasury that represent future income from the taxation of the population. Some economists term this currency by trust. as sterling relies on the faith of the user rather than any physical specie. Issuing banks and authorities. The following table lays out the various banks or authorities which are authorized to print pound sterling banknotes. Organized by territory. England and Wales. Bank of England notes. In 1921, the Bank of England gained a legal monopoly on the issue of banknotes in England and Wales, a process that started with the Bank Charter Act of 1844 when the rights of other banks to issue notes was restricted. The bank issued its first banknotes in 1694. Although before 1745 they were written for irregular amounts, rather than predefined multiples of a pound. It tended to be times of war, which put inflationary pressure on the British economy, that led to greater note issue. In 1759, during the 7 Years' War, when the lowest value note issued by the bank was £20, a £10 note was issued for the first time. In 1793, during the war with revolutionary France, the bank issued the first £5 note. 4 years later, £1 and £2 notes appeared. Although not on a permanent basis, notes did not become entirely machine-printed and payable to the bearer until 1855. At the start of the First World War, the government issued £1 and 10-shilling treasury notes to supplant the sovereign and half-sovereign gold coins. The first coloured banknotes were issued in 1928, and were also the first notes to be printed on both sides. The Second World War saw a reversal in the trend of warfare, creating more notes to combat forgery. Higher denomination notes, some as high as £1,000, were removed from circulation. There are no Welsh banknotes in circulation. Bank of England notes are used throughout Wales. The last Welsh banknotes were withdrawn in 1908 upon the closure of the last Welsh bank, the North and South Wales Bank. An attempt was made in 1969 by a Welsh banker to revive Welsh banknotes, but the venture was short-lived and the notes did not enter general circulation, surviving today only as a collector's curiosity. All Bank of England notes issued since Series C in 1960 depict Queen Elizabeth II on the obverse side, in full view facing left. Her image also appears as a hidden watermark, facing right. Recent issues have the anti-photocopier security Urian constellation around historical figures . In the mid-1960s, shortly after the introduction of Series C, the Bank of England proposed to introduce a new banknotes series featuring people from British history. In addition to enhancing the appearance of banknotes, the complexity of the new designs was intended to make counterfeiting harder. The task of designing the new Series D notes was given to the bank's new in-house designer, Harry Eccleston, who not only designed the notes themselves, but also created 3 individual portraits of the Queen. It was initially envisaged that all of the denominations of notes then in circulation would be issued under Series D. To that end, a Series D 10-shilling note was designed, featuring Sir Walter Raleigh, which would become the 50-pence note upon decimalisation, and intended to be the first of the new series to be issued. However, inflation meant that the lifespan of such a note would be too short. Estimates by the Decimal Currency Board suggested that a 10-shilling note would last approximately 5 months, and it was more economical to have a coin instead. The 50-pence coin was introduced in 1969. Instead, the £20 note was the first Series D note to enter circulation in 1970, with William Shakespeare on the reverse. The Series D £1 note, featuring Sir Isaac Newton, was discontinued in 1984, having been replaced by a pound coin the year before, and was officially withdrawn from circulation in 1988. Nonetheless, all banknotes regardless of when they were withdrawn from circulation, may be presented at the Bank of England, where they will be exchanged for current banknotes. Other banks may also decide to exchange old banknotes, but they are under no obligation to do so. In the E-revision series, the £50 note was never issued. £100 notes were last used by the Bank of England in 1945. Current circulation equals. As of September 2016, the Bank of England banknotes in circulation are from three distinct series. The paper £5 and £10 notes are from the revised Series E. £5 first issued in 2002. £10 first issued in 2000. The two larger denominations are from Series F. £20 first issued in 2007. £50 first issued in 2011. The polymer £5 note is from Series G, first issued in 2016. The notes currently in circulation are as follows. £5 on paper, showing Elizabeth Fry reading to prisoners in Newgate Prison, to be withdrawn in May 2017. £5 on polymer, showing Winston Churchill, the Elizabeth Tower, and the maze at Blenheim Palace. £10 depicting Charles Darwin, a hummingbird in HMS Beagle. £20 depicting Adam Smith, with an illustration of the division of labour in pin manufacturing. £50 depicting Matthew Boulton and James Watt, with steam engine and Bolton's Soho factory. The launch of the new Series F banknotes was announced on 29 October 2006 by the Governor of the Bank of England. The first of these new notes, a £20 note, features the Scottish economist Adam Smith, the first Scot to appear on an English note. The first non-Englishman, Irish Field Marshal Arthur Wellesley, Duke of Wellington, although as a member of the Anglo-Irish ascendancy he considered himself English, appeared on the Series D £5 in 1971. Smith also features on £50 notes issued by the Clydesdale Bank. Previous issues of Bank of England £20 notes were known to have suffered from a higher incidence of counterfeiting. 276,000 out of 290,000 cases detected in 2007, than any other denomination. The note, which also includes enhanced security features, entered circulation on 13 March 2007. The next new Series F banknote, the £50 note, entered circulation on 2 November 2011. It is the first Bank of England banknote to feature two Britons on the reverse: James Watt, another Scotsman, and Matthew Boulton. The first note of Series G, the polymer £5 note, entered circulation on 13 September 2016, and will be followed by the two other confirmed notes in Series G, the £10 note in September 2017. And the £20 by 2020. Polymer notes equals. In April 2013, the Bank of England announced that its next planned new note issue, intended to be the £5 note in 2016, will feature former British Prime Minister Winston Churchill. The selection of Churchill to replace Elizabeth Fry raised some debate about the representation of women on British banknotes, with critics raising concerns that Bank of England notes would portray exclusively male figures. In July 2013 it was announced that the Series F £10 note design would bear a portrait of 19th-century author Jane Austen. In 2015, the bank announced that they were accepting suggestions from the public for a figure from the visual arts to appear on the £20 note to replace Adam Smith, with the new note to be introduced from 2018 to 2020. In April 2016, it was announced that J.M.W. Turner had been selected to appear on the new £20 note. In September 2013, the Bank of England opened a period of public consultation about the introduction of polymer, or plastic, banknotes, which would be introduced into circulation from 2016 if the proposals were supported. The polymer notes will be around 15% smaller than the notes being replaced. In December 2013, the bank confirmed that plastic polymer notes would be brought into circulation in 2016 with the introduction of the £5 note featuring Sir Winston Churchill. The Jane Austen £10 note will go into circulation as a polymer note about a year later. A spokesman for Link, the company that operates many of the cash machines in the United Kingdom, said machines would need to be altered to fit the smaller £5 banknotes. The planned notes are as follows. £5 showing Sir Winston Churchill. The quote, "I have nothing to offer but blood, toil, tears and sweat," from a 1940 speech by Churchill. A view of the Palace of Westminster and the Nobel Prize medal. £10 showing Jane Austen. The quote, "I declare after all there is no enjoyment like reading." From Pride and Prejudice. An illustration of Elizabeth Bennet in a view of Godmersham Park in Kent. £20 showing J. M. W. Turner. The quote, "Light is therefore colour," from an 1818 lecture by Turner. And a view of the Fighting Temeraire. Equals high value notes equals. Higher value notes are used within the banks, particularly the £1 million and £100 million notes, used to maintain parity with Scottish and Northern Irish notes. Banknotes issued by Scottish and Northern Irish banks have to be backed pound for pound by Bank of England notes, other than a small amount representing the currency in circulation in 1845. And special £1 million notes are used for this purpose. Their design is based on the old Series A notes. Scotland and Northern Ireland, while provincial banks in England and Wales lost the right to issue paper currency altogether. The practice of private banknote issue has continued in Scotland and Northern Ireland. The right of Scottish banks to issue notes is popularly attributed to the author Sir Walter Scott, who in 1826 waged a campaign to retain Scottish banknotes under the pseudonym Malachi Malagral. Scott feared that the limitation on private banknotes proposed with the Bankers' Scotland Act 1826 would have adverse economic consequences if enacted in Scotland because gold and silver were scarce and Scottish commerce relied on small notes as the principal medium of circulating money. His action eventually halted the abolition of private banknotes in Scotland. Scottish and Northern Irish banknotes are unusual. Firstly because they are issued by retail banks, not central banks. And secondly, as they are technically not legal tender anywhere in the UK, not even in Scotland and Northern Ireland, they are in fact promissory notes. 7 retail banks have the authority of Home Treasury to issue sterling banknotes as currency. Despite this, the notes can be refused at the discretion of recipients in England and Wales, and are often not accepted by banks and exchange bureaus outside of the United Kingdom. This is particularly true in the case of the Royal Bank of Scotland £1 note, which is the only £1 note to remain in circulation within the UK. In 2000, the European Central Bank indicated that, should the United Kingdom join the euro, Scottish banks, and, by extension, Northern Irish banks, would have to cease banknote issue. During the financial crisis of 2007-2008, the future of private banknotes in the United Kingdom was uncertain. After the financial crisis of 2007-08, a number of banks were rescued from collapse by the United Kingdom government. The Banking Act 2009 was passed to improve protection for holders of banknotes issued by the authorized banks, so that the notes would have the same level of guaranteed value to that of Bank of England notes. Critics of the 2009 Act expressed concerns that it would restrict the issue of banknotes by commercial banks in Scotland and Northern Ireland by removing many of the provisions of the earlier acts quoted above. Under the original proposals, banks would have been forced to lodge sterling funds with the Bank of England to cover private note issue for a full week, rather than over a weekend, thereby losing 4 days' interest and making banknote production financially unviable. Following negotiations among the UK Treasury, the Bank of England and the Scottish banks, it was agreed that the funds would earn interest, allowing them to continue to issue their own notes. During the public debate leading up to the 2014 Scottish independence referendum, the question of Scotland's future currency was discussed. While the SNP have advocated a currency union between an independent Scotland and the remnant of the United Kingdom, Home Treasury issued a statement in April 2013 stating that the present relationship with the Bank of England could be changed after independence, with the result that Scottish banks might lose the ability to issue banknotes backed by Bank of England funds. Scotland. The issuing of retail banknotes in Scotland is subject to the Bank Charter Act 1844. Banknotes. Scotland. Act 1845. The Currency and Banknotes Act 1928. And the Coinage Act 1971. Pursuant to some of these statutes, the Commissioners for Revenue and Customs publishes an account of the amount of notes authorised by law to be issued by the several banks of issue in Scotland, and the average amount of notes in circulation, and of Bank of England notes and coin held in the London Gazette. See for example Gazette issue 58254 published 21 February 2007 at page 2544. Bank of Scotland notes equals. The most recent issue of Bank of Scotland notes is the Bridges of Scotland series, which was introduced on 17 September 2007. Notes of this series depict famous Scottish bridges on the reverse side. As of late 2007, the Tercentenary series, introduced at the time of the Bank of Scotland's 300th anniversary in 1995, remains in circulation, but will be withdrawn as their physical condition deteriorates and will be replaced by the new Bridges series. All Bank of Scotland notes bear a portrait of Sir Walter Scott on the front in commemoration of his 1826 Malachi Malagralda campaign for Scottish banks to retain the right to issue their own notes. Following the announcement that HBOS, Bank of Scotland's parent company, would be taken over by Lloyds TSB in September 2008, it was confirmed that the new banking company would continue to print banknotes under the Bank of Scotland name. According to the Banknotes Scotland Act 1845, the bank could have lost its note-issuing rights, but by retaining headquarters within Scotland, banknote issue will continue. Royal Bank of Scotland notes equals. The current series of Royal Bank of Scotland notes was originally issued in 1987. On the front of each note is a picture of Lord Iler, 1682–1761, the first governor of the bank, based on a portrait painted in 1744 by the Edinburgh artist Alan Ramsay. The front of the notes also feature an engraving of the bank's former headquarters in St Andrew's Square, Edinburgh. The background graphic on both sides of the notes is a radial star design which is based on the ornate ceiling of the banking hall in the old headquarters building. On the back of the notes are images of Scottish castles, with a different castle for each denomination. Occasionally the Royal Bank of Scotland issues commemorative banknotes. Examples include the £1 note issued to mark the 150th anniversary of the birth of Alexander Graham Bell in 1997, the £20 note for the 100th birthday of Queen Elizabeth the Queen Mother in 2000, The £5 note honouring veteran golfer Jack Nicklaus in his last competitive Open Championship at St Andrews in 2005. And the £10 note issued in commemoration of HM Queen Elizabeth II's Diamond Jubilee in 2012. These notes are much sought after by collectors and they rarely remain long in circulation. As of April 2016, the Royal Bank of Scotland is in the process of adopting a new series of banknotes. These will be made of polymer. Two have already been confirmed. The £5 note will show Nan Shepherd on the obverse, accompanied by a quote from her book The Living Mountain, and the Cairngorms in the background. The reverse will display two mackerel, with an excerpt from the poem The Choice by Sorley MacLean. The obverse of the £10 note will show Mary Somerville, with a quote from her work The Connection of the Physical Sciences, and Burnt Island Beach in the background. The reverse will display two otters and an excerpt from the poem Moorings by Norman McCaig. Clydesdale banknotes equals. Clydesdale Bank has two series of banknotes in circulation at present. Banknotes of the famous Scots series portray notable Scottish historical people along with items and locations associated with them. The new World Heritage series of banknotes was introduced in autumn 2009. The new notes each depict a different notable Scot. On the front and on the reverse bear an illustration of one of Scotland's UNESCO World Heritage Sites. The new series will eventually replace the famous Scots series when old notes are gradually removed from circulation. In March 2015, the Clydesdale Bank became the first bank in Great Britain to issue polymer banknotes. The £5 commemorative notes, issued to mark the 125th anniversary of the construction of the Forth Bridge, contain several new security features, including a reflective graphic printed over a transparent window in the banknote. The Clydesdale Bank also occasionally issues special edition banknotes, such as a £10 note celebrating the bank's sponsorship of the Scotland team at the 2006 Commonwealth Games. Northern Ireland. In Northern Ireland, 4 retail banks exercise their right to issue pound sterling notes. Bank of Ireland, First Trust Bank, Danske Bank, formerly Northern Bank, and Ulster Bank. Northern Bank and Ulster Bank are the only two banks that have issued special commemorative notes so far. Bank of Ireland notes equals. Like other Northern Irish banks, Bank of Ireland retains its note-issuing rights from before the partition of Ireland. While Bank of Ireland is headquartered in Dublin, it issues sterling notes within the United Kingdom. In spite of its name, Bank of Ireland is not, and never has been, a central bank. It is a retail bank. Its sterling notes should not be confused with banknotes of the former Irish pound, which were in use in the Republic of Ireland before the adoption of the euro in 2001. Banknotes issued by Bank of Ireland are of a uniform design, with denominations of £5, £10, £20, £50 and £100, each differentiated by colour. The notes all feature an illustration of a seated woman, Hibernia, and the heraldic shields of the counties of Northern Ireland. Until April 2008, all Bank of Ireland notes featured an illustration of Queen's University of Belfast on the reverse side. A new series of £5, £10 and £20 notes issued in April 2008 depicts the old Bush Mills distillery, and these new notes will gradually replace the previous series as older notes are withdrawn from circulation. First Trust Bank equals. First Trust Bank issues notes in denominations of £10, £20, £50 and £100. The notes bear portraits of generic Northern Irish people on the front with varied illustrations on the reverse. Until 1993, the bank issued notes under its former trading name, Allied Irish Banks. Danske Bank equals. In 2012, Northern Bank adopted the name of its Copenhagen-based parent company Danske Bank Group and rebranded its retail banking operation. In June 2013, the bank issued a new series of £10 and £20 notes bearing the new brand name. At the same time, it also announced that it would cease production of £50 and £100 notes. Older notes bearing the Northern Bank name will continue in circulation for some time as they are gradually withdrawn and remain acceptable forms of payment. In spite of the Danish name on the new notes, banknotes issued by Danske Bank are sterling notes and should not be confused with banknotes of the Danish krone issued by the Denmark's National Bank. Denmark's central bank, Danske Bank, does not issue £5 notes, but a special commemorative £5 note was issued by the Northern Bank to mark the year 2000. Uniquely among sterling notes, it was a polymer banknote, printed on synthetic polymer instead of paper. It is the only one of the bank's pre-2004 notes still in circulation. All others were recalled following the £26.5 million robbery at its Belfast headquarters in 2004. Ulster Bank equals. Ulster Bank notes all feature a vignette of 3 Northern Ireland views: the Mourne Mountains, the Queen Elizabeth Bridge and the Giant's Causeway. Notes issued from 1 January 2007 feature the Royal Bank of Scotland Group logo. In November 2006, Ulster Bank issued its first commemorative banknote, an issue of £1 million £5 notes commemorating the first anniversary of the death of Northern Irish footballer George Best. Channel Islands. The Channel Islands are grouped for administrative purposes into the bailiwicks of Jersey and Guernsey. The islands are not part of the United Kingdom but are dependencies of the British Crown and in currency union with the UK. Both Jersey and Guernsey issue their own banknotes. These notes circulate freely between the two territories, so Jersey notes are commonly used in Guernsey, and vice versa. Private banknotes are no longer in circulation in the Channel Islands. These pounds are sterling pounds, but the word sterling is omitted as with the English notes. These notes are legal tender in their jurisdictions but are not legal tender in the UK. The government of Alderney, a part of the bailiwick of Guernsey, is also licensed to issue its own currency, the Alderney pound, but only mints special commemorative sterling coins and does not issue banknotes. Jersey pound. The current series of notes entered circulation on 29 April 2010. The obverse of the notes includes a portrait of Queen Elizabeth II based on a photograph by Mark Lawrence, alongside a view of an important Jersey landmark, with text in English. The reverse of each note includes an image of one of Jersey's numerous historic coastal defense towers, built in the late 18th century, as well as a further image of cultural or landscape importance. Images of the 12 parish crests, and with denomination warded in French and Jerrier. The watermark is a Jersey cow, and further security features include a see-through map of Jersey, and on the £10, £20 and £50 a patch hologram showing a varying image of the coat of arms of Jersey and the island of Jersey on a background pattern of Le Corbusier Lighthouse. On 1 June 2012, a £100 note was issued to commemorate the Diamond Jubilee of Queen Elizabeth II. The previous series, gradually being withdrawn from circulation in 2010, depicted Queen Elizabeth II on the front and various landmarks of Jersey or incidents in Jersey. History on the reverse. States of Guernsey notes. The Guernsey pound is legal tender in Guernsey, but also circulates freely in Jersey. These pounds are sterling pounds, but the word sterling is omitted on banknotes, as on the English ones. It is also accepted in the UK. These notes can also be exchanged in banks and in bureau de change, although it has been reported that British banks no longer accept £1 Guernsey banknotes because they no longer have the facility for handling £1 UK banknotes. In addition to coins, the following banknotes are used. £1 note. Green. Daniel de Lisle Brock, bailiff of Guernsey, 1762 to 1842, and Royal Court, St Peter Port, 1840. On front and the market. St Peter Port on back. £5 note. Pink. Queen Elizabeth II and the Town Church. St Peter Port on front. And Fort Grey and Hanoi Lighthouse. 1862. On the back. £10 note. Blue, orange. Queen Elizabeth II and Elizabeth College. St Peter Port on the front and Saumarez Park. Les Nio Watermill. La Trapeze Dolmen on the back. £20 note. Pink. Queen Elizabeth II and St James Concert Hall. St Peter Port on the front and Vale Castle and St Sampson's Church on the back. £50 note. Light brown. Queen Elizabeth II and the Royal Court House on the front and St Andrew's Church in La Grandmere on the back. Isle of Man. The Isle of Man government issues its own banknotes and coinage, which are legal tender in the Isle of Man. Manx pounds are a local issue of the pound sterling, but the word sterling does not appear on the banknotes. These notes can be exchanged in banks and in bureau de change in the United Kingdom. The front of all Manx banknotes features images of Queen Elizabeth II, not wearing a crown. She is only Lord on the island, and the Triskelies, 3 legs emblem. Each denomination features a different scene of the island on its reverse side. £1 Tynwald Hill, £5 Castle Rushen, £10 Peel Castle, £20 the Laxey Wheel, £50 Douglas Bay. British Overseas Territories. 3 British overseas territories use their own separate currencies called pounds, which are at par with the pound sterling. The governments of these territories print their own banknotes, which in general may only be used within their territory of origin. Bank of England notes usually circulate alongside the local note issues and are accepted as legal currency. Gibraltar. In Gibraltar, banknotes are issued by the government of Gibraltar. The pound was made sole legal tender in 1898 and Gibraltar has issued its own banknotes since 1934. The notes bear an image of the British monarch on the obverse and the wording "pounds sterling," meaning that more retailers in the UK will accept them. Falkland Islands. The Falkland Islands pound is the currency of the Falkland Islands. Banknotes are issued by the Falkland Islands government. The illustrations on all notes are the same, featuring the British monarch, wildlife and local scenes. Denominations are distinguished by the size and colour of the notes. St Helena, Ascension and Tristan da Cunha. St Helena, Ascension and Tristan da Cunha's constituent territories of St Helena and Ascension Island use the St Helena pound. Banknotes in these areas are issued by the St Helena government and bear the image of the British monarch. Counterfeiting. According to the central banks, the ratio of counterfeited banknotes is about 10 in 1 million of real banknotes for the Swiss franc, 50 in 1 million for the euro, 100 in 1 million for United States dollar and 300 in 1 million for pound sterling. See also Bradbury Wilkinson and Company, printer of banknotes, postage stamps and share certificates. Coins of the pound sterling. List of British banknotes and coins. Pound Scots, Scottish coinage. Anti-Union currency of Scotland. List of people on banknotes. List of British currencies. Commonwealth. States within the Commonwealth of Nations issue their own banknotes which are separate currencies. Commonwealth banknote issuing institutions. Notes. Citations. Bank of England banknote page. Committee of Scottish Clearing Bankers homepage. The Royal Bank of Scotland banknote page. Isle of Man banknotes. IOM Treasury. History of Scottish banks and banknotes. Rampant Scotland.